Guys, welcome back to Monkeys with Magic. Today we're going to be taking a look at a burrow precon, Miss Bumbleflower. So let's get into it. Okay, so first let's get the tokens out. Alright, so here's the commander, Miss Bumbleflower. And Miss Bumbleflower makes it so that whenever you cast a spell, target opponent draws a card, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. It gains flying until end of turn, and if this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. So lots of card drawing there. Now let's get into the actual cards. Mr. Foxglove. When he attacks, you draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand, minus the number of cards in your hand. If you didn't draw cards this way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Ooh, this is a cool planeswalker. Tamio, field researcher. Does some cool things. Tenuous Truce. That's a cool looking art. Moran of the Third Path. When it enters, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. And you can draw cards with that. This one gets counters. That's a lot of rabbits. Tempt with Bunnies. Draw a card and create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. Then each opponent may draw a card and create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. For each opponent who does, you draw a card and you create a 1/1 white rabbit creature token. That's a lot of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens. Perch Protection. Gift an extra turn. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast this spell. If you do, they take an extra turn after this one. That's interesting. Never seen that before. Create 4 2/2 blue bird creature tokens with flying. If the gift was promised, all permanents you control phase out. And until your next turn, your life total can't change and you gain protection from everything. That's definitely a unique one. Sunscorch Regent. That's a cool looking creature. Promise of Loyalty. Each player puts a vow counter on a creature they control and sacrifices the rest. Each of those creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control for as long as it has a vow counter on it. Wow. Hoofprints of the Stag. Whenever you draw a card, you put a hoofprint counter on Hoofprints of the Stag, and you remove 4 hoofprint counters from Hoofprints of the Stag to create a 4/4 white elemental creature token with flying. Wow, pretty good, pretty good. Mangara, the Diplomat. Whenever opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, draw a card. Whenever opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. Realm Cloaked Giant. 7/7 with Vigilance. Nice. Or you can destroy all non-giant creatures. Sphinx of Enlightenment. When it enters, target opponent draws a card, and you draw 3 cards. Actually, pretty good. Whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of 1/1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. That's actually pretty good. I like that one. Bloodroot Apothecary. Toxic 2. Fun. When it enters, you and target opponent each create a treasure token. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. Ooh, this would be pretty good against anybody who has tokens. Communal Brewing. That's a long card. I don't feel like reading it. Mana Gorger Hydra. Whenever a player casts a spell, put a 1/1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. That's pretty good. Very good indeed. Especially if you're playing with a lot of people. Rishkar Pima Renegade. When it enters, put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has add a green mana if you tap. That's pretty good. Rites of Flourishing. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Each player may play an additional land on each of their turns. Wow, that's a fun card. Tempt with Discovery. Search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. Each opponent may search their library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. For each opponent who searches a library this way, search your library for a land card and put it on the battlefield. Then each player who searched a library this way shuffles. Colonian Hydra. Colonian Hydra enters with 4 1/1 counters on it. Whenever Colonian Hydra attacks, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. Wow. That's a good one. Burrow Elder. Burrow Elder gets 1/1 for each color among permanents you control. For each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. Simic Ascendancy. That's long, I don't feel like reading it. Artifact. Here, each player may play an additional land on each of their turns. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, if that player has no cards in hand, that player draws 3 cards. Wow, that's pretty fun. Psychosis Crawler. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, and whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses a life. It's pretty good, especially for this deck. A bunch of lands. Alright. Oh boy, this is a mouthful. Triskaidekaphile. You have no maximum hand size at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. And for 4 mana, you can draw a card. Chasm Skulker. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on Chasm Skulker. When Chasm Skulker dies, create X 1/1 blue squid creature tokens with Island Walk, where X is the number of 1/1 counters on Chasm Skulker. Pretty good. Octomancer. Gift an octopus. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast this spell. If you do, when it enters, they create an 8/8 blue octopus creature token. At the beginning of each end step, create a token that's a copy of target creature token that entered the battlefield this turn. Okay, so you're getting a lot of octopuses. Octopi. 20-toed toad. Your maximum hand size is 20. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, put a 1/1 counter on 20-toed toad and draw a card. Whenever 20-toed toad attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it, or if you have 20 or more cards in hand. Pretty good. Intellectual Offering. Choose an opponent. You and that player each draw 3 cards. Choose an opponent. Untap all non-land permanents you control and all non-land permanents that player controls. Illusionist Gambit. Cast the spell only during the Declare Blocker step on an opponent's turn. Move all attacking creatures from combat and untap them. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Each of those creatures attacks that combat if able. They can't attack you or planeswalkers. You control that combat. Body of Knowledge. Equal power and toughness equal number of cards in your hand, no maximum hand size. When it's dealt damage, draw that many cards. That's pretty good. Perplexing Test. Choose one. Return all creature tokens to their owner's hand. Return all non-token creatures to their owner's hands. Jolrael Mwanvili Recluse. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Create a 2/2 green cat creature token. For 6 mana until end of turn, creatures you control have base power and toughness XX, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Very good. Ooh. A class. That's nice. Ooh. 8/8. If you would create a shark token, create an 8/8 blue octopus creature token instead. Selvala Explorer returns. Parley. You can tap. Each player reveals the top card of their library. For each non-land card revealed this way, add 1 mana and you gain a life. Then each player draws a card. Fun. Quain Internet Meddler. Tap it. Each player may draw a card. Then each player who drew a card this way gains 1 life. Wow. Cool. Coveted Jewel. When Coveted Jewel enters, draw 3 cards. Add 3 mana of any one color. Wow. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attack you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of Coveted Jewel. Untap it. Wow. Land card. Generous Gift. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Very nice. Swords to Plowshares. Secret Rendezvous. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. Baird. Steward of Argive. Vigilance creatures can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless their controller pays 1 mana for each of those creatures. Huh. That'd be pretty good for goblins, maybe. An offer you can't refuse. Counter target non-creature spell. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. Wizard class. Ooh, I like this one. You have no maximum hand size. Draw 2 cards, and when you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Cultivate. Search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal it, put it on the battlefield, tap, shuffle. You go there into your hand. Farseek. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card, put it on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. Broken Wings. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Spore Frog. That's a freaky looking dude. Sacrifice Spore Frog, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Wear down. Gift a card. You may promise an opponent a gift as you cast a spell. If you do, they draw a card before its other effects. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. If the gift was promised, instead destroy 2 artifacts and or enchantments. Peerless Recycling. Gift a card. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If the gift was promised, instead return 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Pretty good. Coiling Oracle. When it enters, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card in your hand. Riot Control. You gain 1 life for each creature your opponents control. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Martial Impetus. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 is goaded. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents gets +1/+1 till end of turn. Jolly Gerbils. Whenever you give a gift, draw a card. That's a funny looking one. Long River's Pole. Gift a card. Counter target creature spell. If the gift was promised, instead counter target spell. Thought Vessel. Okay, so these are just artifacts. Arcane Signet, Swiftfoot Boots, Felwar Stone, Soul Ring, Mind Stone. You got lands. Lots of lands. And there you go. That's the deck. Hope you guys liked it. Bye.